hot topic of foreign law firms being allowed in India finally. So what are your thoughts on that? And how does it impact a firm like yours?
Since it's a fairly would have been something that Pallavi did when you last met us. I don't know what feedback you had from other people you've spoken to, but I, at least personally, are fairly kind of ambivalent about this at the moment. Just looking at the proposals. To be honest, they don't really move the needle from what was proposed about 2 decades ago, say. But in that meantime, a lot has kind of happened, both from a kind of a regulatory perspective, and I'll come to that in a second, as well as the market more broadly in India.
Yeah.
I think the whole point about being able to advise on foreign law and foreign clients, which was the clarification that came in later on, will
Yes.
kind of really restrict appetite, I would imagine. I think when you combine that with this point about any kind of Indian lawyer who would be employed at those firms or part of those firms having to give up the Indian qualification, will further kind of, I would imagine, kind of dent aspirations to a large extent, because, unlike what was the situation 2 decades ago, now there is a fair amount of clarity as to what Indian law actually means, as because of the case. So I think that will certainly be somewhat inhibiting, I would expect. I know firms will, potentially firms might push the envelope on that, but, it's a risky proposition, I would imagine, given now that there is regulatory oversight, right? The Bar Council has come up with rules. They have said what you can and cannot do, and therefore that cannot do bucket is a slightly difficult one to kind of fall into, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think it's therefore ambivalent as to see what you people take on this. I'm sure there'll be, it'll make sense for a number of perhaps very niche firms who have, particular kind of needs to have an office here and provide and are able to kind of focus on foreign law for foreign clients who are kind of operating in the market here. Firms from other jurisdictions, perhaps, where there is either a language issue, which means it's important for them to be on the ground. But again, within the kind of guardrails of what the regulations kind of provide for. But for other firms coming in, wait and watch, I think.
Yeah,
but I think they can.
I think that
they can advise
Indian. Sorry, Pallavi, go ahead.
They can advise Indian companies which have foreign establishments, is what the BCI chairman mentioned in his interview, that like a Tata or a Birla who have outfits outside India, those kind of Indian companies can be advised, but I don't know how much that clarifies it further.
Or how much of a size of a firm that allows, right? How many people do you need to be sitting in? Now, actually, take a good example, like Tata or Birla, they've got operations in the entire world, not to put a kind of without kind of really exaggerating. So to have an American lawyer or an English lawyer, an Australian lawyer, whatever lawyer sitting out here is not going to actually, it's a good liaison for sure. But in terms of actually providing services, would you want to have an office here? Do you need to have an office here to be able to provide those services? So yeah.
Exactly. I think, I mean, that, Pallavi, most of the foreign firms are doing already, right? I mean, they are already providing services to Indian firms, Indian companies for operations. So you don't need to have an Indian office. And as Kunal said, why would if Tata or Birla or Reliance or whoever else, they need advice on something they are doing in the US? Does it make sense for them to go to a foreign lawyer sitting in Mumbai or Delhi, or does it make sense for them to go to whoever is the best placed in that jurisdiction, and who obviously will have a far greater degree of specialization experience in the jurisdiction? So I'm not. I think whatever I've spoken with people, including some of the foreign firms, I think there is still a little confusion on the basic question. That when you say that foreign firms have been allowed to come into India, I think no one knows what that means currently, that what have they been really allowed to do. And if you look at the very narrow and conservative scope of what we feel that yes, everyone is aligned that that's what they're allowed to do. Is that really enough to interest anyone? I mean, of course, they'll all take their own decision, but I think it's still,
Yeah.
I think it'll be a while before we see a lot of traction on this.
So while we're speaking about entry of foreign law firms, TT&A has had the longest and the strongest relationship with Linklaters. Does that relationship still continue? Because as per the market perception, it still continues. So if you can give us some clarity on that.
So, no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Obviously, kind of, as you know, we had, as you said, the best friends relationship that was pretty much there from TTA's inception back in 2007. And as you say, when you came and met us in 2013, 14, which was when I was still very much live in there. But
Okay.
I was a close relationship, right? We had kind of a referral arrangement. We worked exclusively as much as we possibly could, sharing of know-how, and it was fantastic. It worked really well. But I think time moves on, and market needs and your own needs kind of move on. I think that model was not kind of sustainable for either of Links or ourselves, and it was kind of time to move on, pretty much. Uh, and that's exactly what has happened
Okay.
over the last kind of few years. Now, there there wasn't any kind of formal kind of announcement of any kind of breakup or anything like that, if you will, because simply there was no formal announcement about it being the relationship. It was just there from the beginning, and that's what it was.
Yes.
So kind of COVID kind of was a bit of a dampener in terms of getting that message across. But
Okay.
but there isn't any formal relationship at the moment, or informal relationship indeed. Of course, between the relationship, because myself spent 11 years there, Sonali, Firoz, Rahul, who spent considerable time, there's lots of old relationships. And I
Correct.
think the quality of work that we do means that we do a lot of work together. But Linklaters works extensively with a lot of Indian law firms, and we work extensively with a lot of foreign law firms as well. So, that the working thing goes on, but there's no formal or informal relationship at all. I
Okay.
kind of laugh about this, but while Gautam was talking about TT&A being the fit and everything, I think that was one of the first questions he asked, because I don't think anybody, either him or anybody in his team, would want to kind of give up the strong relationships that they've developed over the years with kind
Yeah.
of lawyers around the world, and come into a place where that those effectively are cut off. So yeah, so no formal or informal relationship anymore. But yeah,
Okay.
you work together like you do with other firms, like they do as well.
Okay. And
And
but with this recent
I
development,
think just to, as Kunal said, that was in fact one of the first questions I asked, and that was one of the questions in my head. Of course, even though there is a market perception, or even a year and a half ago, there was a market perception, but I kind of figured that things are, probably kind of moved on, like it happened with other firms, whether it was, many years ago, AZB and Clifford Chance, or Allen and Overy and Trilegal, and then, so many others. Because, we were working with Links on a number of corporate transactions as part of AZB. I mean, which had never happened in the previous 10 years before that. But in the last 2-3 years, we had started kind of, getting referrals from them. So it was clear
yeah,
that they also wanted to expand the scope of their relationships in India, which is natural. And therefore, for us also as a team, that's why it made sense. Otherwise, being part of a large global network, whatever may be the advantage, was never kind of my attraction.
So I think I know the answer to the next question, but I'll still ask, with this development, do you see any going back to being best friends or having any relationships or being in talks with any of the international firms?
No, to be honest. As I said, I think if you look back at just how the world has moved on, right? And we all 100 lawyers now. It's a different universe. So no, I think you'd asked earlier about kind of what impact you think this law firms
Yes.
in India is going to have. It really depends on what happens in the market, right? If under these current proposals, as you said, I don't think much. But actually, even in another world, I wouldn't be surprised at all, given how the Indian legal market has developed in the last 20 odd years, 20 plus years. It's more deep, more mature expertise, client relationships. All of these are very substantial and robust with both domestic and importantly international clients who would be looking for legal service from overseas. So there's a strong, mature market here. I could very easily envisage a situation like you have in Australia or South Africa, where you've got very strong local firms who are kind of at the forefront of the market, and then you have foreign firms who are kind of there at the periphery, either formally or through kind of relationships. You have that very clearly in China, Brazil, but there's maybe there's a language issue there which kind of changes things. But it's a it's a strong market here, strong relationships, and big-sized, substantial firms. And it'll be interesting to see how all that kind of plays out with as and when foreign firms are allowed in any meaningful manner.
Yeah, I think Pallavi, from our perspective, just to echo what Kunal said, I think in terms of our choice, we value the size, we value the culture, and we value the kind of common vision which all of us currently have. So in terms of our aspiration, there is no real driver to become part of a large network or do that. I mean, it just we would be independent. Of course, 10 years down the line, if the contours of the market completely changes, we'll see at that point. But in terms of our assessment of how the market is going to change in the next few years, I personally don't feel that there will be a radical change. I mean, I know there have been some statements and some other people have kind of felt that this is a path-breaking move, or it's just completely redefine the legal profession. Maybe in the very long term, but that's something we don't know yet. But I don't really see a major change in the next few years. And having been speaking to a lot of clients as well, I mean, domestic clients obviously are in a different category. I mean, for the Indian work, whether it is their old relationships with law firms or lawyers, or just fee issues, or variety of issues. I mean, I don't see a major shift by domestic clients. Now, even if you look at international clients today, a very large proportion of active international clients now have had a base in India for a long time, and they have teams in India. They have counsels, investment teams, commercial guys. And all these people have, again, over a period of time, formed excellent relationships based on mutual trust, etc. With Indian lawyers, and they're sophisticated. I mean, it's not that they feel just there's an international brand which opens up and suddenly now we need to go there because the quality of service, etc., will be radically different. I mean, they are very clear on what they want, and if they feel that there is a transaction where an international firm is required, even today, they involve the international firms on those transactions. So I don't see, because of this, a business case for suddenly 20-25 international firms coming into India, opening big offices, etc. in the immediate run. So hopefully we can continue doing what we are doing, at least in the short to medium run, and then we'll see how it goes.